Capture the Flag is a really fun game type, which I feel like gets a bad rap in general by the stereotype that it's a game type that only tryhards play, and that if you're a casual player, stay away because you'll get wrecked and ruin the game. This is untrue, it's not like that, but I already made an entire video explaining why I think CTF unjustly has the reputation it does, so I won't elaborate on that here. I will concede though that CTF is a more complex game type with more nuance that the other more popular game types don't really have, and this can cause newer players to join in, get lost wondering if they're doing the right thing or if their actions have any impact, and then they'll stop playing and wonder what it was all about. I've also seen that there's really no videos online about how a CTF game generally works, despite there seeming to be videos online for like everything. So this is going to be my attempt at explaining to people how a game of old school CTF works, so that anyone who wants to give it a try can go in with an understanding of the game flow and know how to do whatever they're attempting to accomplish. CTF is not only for tryhards, it's very fun casually as well, but it does have a higher barrier for entry when compared to more popular modes like Clan Arena, where you start with every weapon and don't need to procure supplies around the map at all, and then the only objective is just kill the enemy. I'll be explaining how CTF works in a coordinated environment where two teams who understand how it works are hypothetically playing, but this does not mean at all that this guide is only geared toward competitive players and you need to play this way. My goal in explaining it this way is so anyone after watching can hop into a casual game of CTF and know what's happening, see the state of the game, and understand what they probably need to do in order to make the biggest impact on the match, and hopefully begin to really appreciate what the game type has to offer. So let's start off at the beginning. CTF is an objective-based game type where the goal is to get into the enemy base, grab their flag, and then bring the flag back to your base in order to score a point. If you die, you drop the flag, and if the enemy touches it before your teammates can pick it up again, the flag will return to their base. You cannot capture a flag if your flag is currently missing from its capture point. Seems simple enough, but how do teams generally organize themselves? Generally, because people are attacking and defending both sides of the map at all times, no one person can do everything, which means players will end up choosing roles to play on their team. These aren't like roles in modern shooters with healers, tanks, damage dealers, sniper, blah blah blah. Every person on the map is basically playing the same character, and where they play on the map and what they want to accomplish determines their role that is used to describe them. I think a good way to describe how a CTF team will play is to compare it to a basketball team. And I know, you're here to hear about video games, so you're probably going, sports! But just hear me out briefly. On a basketball team, there's 5 players on the court per team while the game is in play. The point guard, the shooting guard, the small forward, the power forward, and the center. Each of the players who play a position or a role has a job to do on the team, and they play on a court in a place to optimize what they're trying to accomplish by playing that role. Or another interpretation is that they don't play a position because they are that role, but rather they are that role because they play very well from that position. However you want to interpret it, each role has responsibilities, and different players with differing capabilities will thrive more on a role more suited to them. If everyone's trying to be the point guard, your team is imbalanced, and this is not unlike CTF in a classic FPS game. Moving back to CTF. The standard for CTF in Unreal Tournament is 5 players per team, and the most common role distribution is generally going to be 2 defenders, 1 midfielder, and 2 attackers. This is just a general guideline. Not every team needs to have this exact spread, and depending on how many players you have, it may change. CTF in games like Quake 3 are generally played 4v4 and usually follow the format of 1 defender, 1 mid, 2 attackers. Casual games of Unreal Tournament can have teams of up to 8v8 on some of the really big maps, so you'll want to keep in mind the general ratio of role distribution, but it's not a rule you need to follow that closely. On a CTF team, you generally want to have the most attackers, then defenders, then mids. With 6 players on a team, a composition of 2-2-2 is a good balance, and with 8 players, a composition of 3-2-3, 2-3-3, or even 2-2-4 is alright. Any composition with more mids or defenders than attackers is a bit weak unless you're turtling and actively aren't trying to cap. Let's look at a top-down view of a CTF map in Unreal Tournament similarly to how we looked at a top-down view of a basketball court earlier, and maybe you'll see now why I think a basketball court and the positions their players play is a good analogy to describe a CTF map and the positions CTF players will play. In this example, we'll assume it's a 5v5 game of Unreal Tournament, just like a standard 5v5 game of basketball. We have the Flagroom Defender, the Forward Defender, the mid player or center, and the 2 attackers, which can alternate between the flag carrier and the support attacker. The boxes I've created around the roles will show the general area on the map they'll want to try to occupy. As you can see, unlike a basketball game, players are distributed across the entire map rather on one half of the map like an attack-defend style, but I feel the comparison between the two is appropriate enough that if you're someone who hasn't played CTF before, yet knows how positions and sports teams work, you'll get the idea I'm trying to convey. So now, let's talk about what each role does, their responsibilities, and some tips for each role. We'll use Unreal Tournament as our main example when talking, but these concepts can be used in other shooters, and I'll try to get some background footage for multiple games. We'll start with defenders. In a game of 5v5 or more, you generally want 2 defenders, each playing in slightly different positions while doing their job of protecting your flag. First off, you'll have the Flagroom Defender. The main task of the Flagroom Defender is to protect your flag or the room it's in directly almost all the time. You also need to make sure you stay stacked up on armor. Oftentimes there will be an armor pickup within your base somewhere. This always belongs to you or the other defender if you can't get to it before it's contested by the enemy. In Unreal Tournament 2K4, small armor, health kits, and ammo all respawn 27 seconds after they're picked up. So whenever you grab an armor, you need to make sure that you know when the next one spawns so you can grab it again. Large armors and kegs of health respawn in 55 seconds. You can round up to 30 and 60 seconds respectively to make timings a bit easier on yourself. Keep in mind, you won't be able to stop the enemy team from grabbing your flag all the time, so it's important that when your flag does get grabbed and taken from your base, you do not chase it. If you're not protecting your flag room, that gives the enemy an opportunity to plant attackers in it. Also, if your flag is missing but your team has the enemy flag, it's your job to protect your flag carrier inside your base until your forward teammates can retrieve your flag and your carrier can capture it. The next type of defender is going to be the midfield defender. If you want to argue semantics, you can claim this isn't a forward defender, but rather a defensive mid. Either way, I think they're better categorized as a defender. Generally, you want to be a flex between playing back and helping your Flagroom defender, and playing forward to support your mid player or escort flag carriers that make it to the middle of the map. If your mid player wants help getting a power-up or armor that will be spawning mid, generally you'll want to help them contest it, all while trying to damage or stop attackers that are heading into your flag room. If your flag is stolen, you generally want to try to intercept flag carriers closer to the middle of the map where you'll have more backup, though if you have the opportunity to aggress on a flag carrier before they make it to mid, go for it. If your team takes the enemy flag, you should probably play a bit more forward so that once your flag carrier makes it to mid, you can escort him back to your flag room. Even while your team is capturing the enemy flag, your base will still be under attack, so you'll need to play in a bit more of a forward position while waiting for your flag carrier, but still maintain a defensive mindset and be an obstacle to the enemy attackers. You and the Flagroom Defender are both defenders first and foremost. However, you have a bit more freedom on where you choose to defend since you don't need to babysit the capture point. Next role we'll talk about is the midfielder or center. As a mid player, your general job is to secure control of the middle of the map. There's often armor or strong weapons in the middle of the map, so securing these for your team is important. It also makes escorting flag carriers much easier, as once someone reaches the midfield, if their team has control of it, that's less of a dangerous distance they need to run before making it to their base. Alternatively, if the enemy has control of mid, when you leave the enemy base, you'll begin to be assaulted by stacked up, bloodthirsty midfielders. So when you have control of mid, it makes it much easier to prepare attacks and use routes to the flag without the enemy seeing exactly which route you used. You've got to be flexible and support both your attacking and defending sides when they need your help. If attackers are having trouble getting flags, you can move up to assist them in a strike or put pressure on side routes if you have control of them to distract defenders while your attackers go in. If your team is constantly being assaulted without any breathing room, you may need to play back more and make sure that the attackers going in are as damaged as possible so they're less likely to survive their encounter. It's also your job to time the items at mid. As I said in the defensive section, it's a defender's job to know the timing of the items in their base, and it's the midfielder's job to know the timing of the items for the ones mid so you can take them or give them to an attacker as they move through. Oftentimes, there's a double damage somewhere in the middle of the map you'll want to contest. In Unreal Tournament 2K4, double damage respawns 82 seconds after it's been grabbed. You can round down to 80 seconds to make timing it a bit easier. Generally, try to be in position to contest these power-ups around 10 seconds before they appear, and don't be afraid to communicate to attackers to help you contest it whenever it spawns. If they can get it, it'll make the next assault on the enemy base much more effective. Finally, we'll talk about attackers. Just like defenders, there's two kinds of attackers, the flag carrier and the support. If you're a flag carrier, your only goal is to capture the flag. That is your prime directive and priority above all else. Sometimes this means just rushing in with a teammate constantly to create pressure and wear the enemy down, and sometimes this requires a bit of a slower approach to potentially starve defenders of their resources and land unreturned damage before you initiate. Try to limit the amount of fighting you do before you get into the enemy base, because anyone you kill on the way there will just respawn in it and you'll have to deal with them again. This doesn't mean you shouldn't fight anybody, mind you. It's a shooting game, so take pot shots at people, assist in fights you pass by, but don't stop to fight people or chase enemies in a direction away from your base. Move towards the enemy base using whichever route you choose to do so. Maybe pick up some armor and weapons along the way, since being stacked with armor is preferable for a flag carrier, but your prime directive is attacking the enemy flag. Enemy attackers are not your problem. Your problem is, how am I going to get into the enemy base and take their flag? And generally the solution is going to be by working together with your attacking ally. The second type of attacker is going to be the support. As the support, your main job is to initiate the fight in the flag room and try to distract and do damage to the enemy while your flag carrier grabs the flag and makes a run for it back to your base. The flag carrying role and support role are somewhat fluid, as you want the person with the larger health and armor stack to be the flag runner. So if you're about to go in for an attack and you have notably more armor than your attacking friend, communicate that they should go in first and you'll try to go for the flag. If an enemy base is really hard to crack into, sometimes you'll require the assistance of your mid player as well. As the attacking support, once your flag carrier has picked up the flag, it's your job to escort them all the way back to the base. Do not linger in the enemy base for too long, and do not stop to pick random fights. Escort your carrier all the way back home, and if you get a flag cap, you can move with them towards the enemy base for another attack. As the flag runner, your job once you picked up the flag is just to run for the base using either the quickest route possible or the safest route possible if you think taking another route will help you avoid enemy resistance. Again, feel free to turn and take shots and assist in combat if you think you have the time for it, but never stop running. Always be moving towards capturing the flag. If turning and taking pot shots is going to slow you down, focus on your movement until you get somewhere where you feel comfortable assisting in combat while simultaneously moving towards your capture. It's your team's job to escort you. In some games like Quake, where movement is very fast even when holding a flag, many flag runners don't take part in combat while running the flag at all and entirely focus on movement to get back home as quickly as possible. But in a game like Unreal Tournament, where you can't use your translocator while you're running a flag, finding moments to turn back and rocket or fire a flak grenade can help keep chasers off your tail. If you're in a position where the enemy has your flag, but you also have the enemy flag, leading to a situation where neither team can cap, it's generally going to be the job of the attackers to hunt down and retrieve their team's flag. So despite the fact that I said attackers should avoid taking fights unless necessary, if your team already has the flag but physically cannot cap it, it is now your job as an attack or a mid to find and retrieve your flag. So now, hopefully, you understand the roles in a CTF game and the general ways to play them. You may be thinking, this is cool and all, but it sounds like it's only something that applies to tryhards. I just want to play casually, and this doesn't seem like a good environment for casual players. Like I've said in the past, CTF seems intimidating, but once you get into the swing of things, it'll feel second nature to participate and fill the roles where they're needed. If you're a new player playing casually, here's my advice to you upon joining a game. Once you connect to a server and you're given the opportunity to join a team, you generally want to join the team with less players to even the odds. If teams have an even amount of players, that's no problem. It's generally common practice to join the team who's losing, or if they have the same number of flag captures, the team with less frags or points. Once you've joined a team, you need to figure out what role your team needs. Whenever you spawn, make your way to your flag room and check that you have defenders. Assuming you're in a game with 5 or more players, check to see if you have a Flagroom Defender and a forward defensive player. I've heard some people in the past say that the name Capture the Flag is not entirely accurate, since they'd argue that protecting the flag is more important than capturing it. If you've got defenders already, then you can make the decision to play mid or attack, but the important thing is to first make sure your team has a proper defense before you go ham and assault the enemy base. Because CTF can feel hectic at times due to the fact that both teams are attacking and defending at the same time, it's easy to question if you're really in the right place doing the right thing at times, but don't sweat it too much. Anyone still playing these old games is probably doing it for the fun of it, and if you ever need any help, they'll be down to give you some advice with no problems. And there you have it. Now you'll hopefully understand the roles of a game of CTF, and how as someone who wants to drop in and play some matches, you can assess the situation and determine the best way to contribute to your team. Hopefully in watching this video you've learned something about the CTF game type, and maybe I was able to pique your interest in giving it a try. If you're interested in playing some CTF, I think Unreal Tournament 2004 is a good place to start, since 1, it's abandonware and free to play, meaning anyone can pick it up and play it. It's a relatively old game, so it'll run on any computer nowadays, And I think it's a great arena shooter for new players of the genre to pick up, since its execution floor to perform movement tech is much more accessible than something like Quake. I've seen a lot of people try to play Quake and get filtered by having to learn the movement and just give up on it, but Unreal Tournament still has a lot of depth to its movement, while also being very easy to pick up on a basic level for newer and beginner players. I have my own Unreal Tournament 2004 servers here in Germany, so if you're interested in participating sometime, you can join the Discord I'll link in the description to know when I'm attempting to populate my servers. Or if you don't want to join a Discord server to play a game, that's understandable. I also have a Google Calendar that I update with times and the IP of the server, so anyone can view it and stay updated on when I'm going to try to fill the servers out without having to join a Discord for it. I'll put the link to the calendar as well in the description below. I also have a video on this channel about how to start your own Unreal Tournament 2004 dedicated server using a Linux VPS. So if you're not in Europe but still want to give the game a try and you can wrangle up enough players, you can check out that video and see how to start your own Unreal Tournament server. If you have any questions, you can always ping me in Discord to ask me, or try leaving a comment on the video, and if I get a notification for it, I'll try to respond. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see some more people taking interest in the CTF game type in the future.